Sour Kids Productions.
What's going on, folks? Welcome to another episode of the Final Drive here at Sour Kids Production Studios. It is Alec, it is Tony, once again here for another episode of the Final Drive recap on all things the NFL Week 10 and so forth. We have some fun things to get into today. Tony, obviously, a lot happened this week. Lots of excitement in the NFL. Lots of exciting games. The Jefferson one-handed snag. Obviously, the Cowboy-Packer game was full of drama until the very end. The playoff picture is starting to form, take shape a little bit. The Eagles lost, so there are no more undefeated teams. The 72 Dolphins are all cheering right now because that's done. Washington is very much in the mix of the NFC East now, it looks like. With Heineke, they're playing better. Tampa kind of got, they got things back right again against the Seahawks in Germany. Which, again, I love seeing the NFL expand also. Like, they have the London games. They're playing in Mexico in a couple of weeks, and then Germany last week. So, love to see the
Germany
expansion.
crowd, I really liked what how involved they got. That was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, for sure. So, lots of exciting things happen. I'll throw it to you first, and we'll just dish some thoughts back and forth. But Week 10, what were some of your big takeaways?
I don't want to start with the Cowboys.
We'll get into the Cowboys in a little bit.
Yeah,
we'll get into them because.
Do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about the NFC North in general? Because all those games were
exciting.
All the teams. Well, I wouldn't say all the teams won because the Detroit and Chicago played each other, but it felt like both teams won. I truly thought like they both won that game.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So let's start with obviously Minnesota. Big game on the road against Buffalo. The Vikings. They were a one-loss team, and I think everybody thought like, okay, they're a fun team. Their record's good, but they need that signature win.
I think it's the Philly Junior. They were looking like Philly Junior, where you're like, it's good. The record is really good. Like I like what I see. They look like they have everything, but I'm not sold. But the difference is I am now sold on Minnesota more than Philly.
Yeah, I agree. I think for the Vikings, obviously the snag by Justin Jefferson in the fourth quarter, 4th and 18. Kirk Cousins Perk Cousins, as I'm gonna call him from here on out.
Non-prime time Kirk.
12 o'clock kickoff. Kirk is elite. Make no mistake. But 4th and 18, game on the line, and you see, I think it's Dane Jackson, the Bills DB, has his hands on the ball, and you see Jefferson with the one hand up come down with it, and that game was full of just pure nonsense in that fourth quarter. Buffalo obviously kind of, I think, sold more than anything. But hey, a win's a win, especially for a team like the Vikings, where again, I think like you mentioned, I think the outside chatter with them was the record's good. They're a one-loss team. They have all these weapons, but much like Philly, you didn't have that signature win against an elite playoff team, and now you do.
Exactly, and it's not just the Buffalo Bills. It was Buffalo in Buffalo. Their only knock that I would have against it was that Josh Allen wasn't perceived to be 100%. That was the whole talk of this week was if he's going to play or not. And do you think that had an effect on this game?
No, I kind of think with Buffalo, in particular, Josh Allen, he played very Brett Favre-esque there at the end, trying to play hero ball. And, I think Buffalo maybe needed this loss because I think this is a team that maybe throughout the year have bought into the hype of, they're an automatic contender for the Super Bowl. They were a coin toss away last year from going to the Super Bowl. I think Buffalo needed this loss in the way it happened to kind of, get back to reality. What happened last year was great, but forget last year. That doesn't count. This is a new season. Everyone got better. Obviously in the AFC, everyone got so much better. And I think, if you're a team that is looking to compete, you got to put last year behind you and move forward. This is a new season. And, again, they ultimately, I think, costed themselves this game. But I think they needed this to kind of cool down and realize, hey, there's still X amount of games left. We got to play every single game to the fullest. And nothing's given in the playoffs. You could be a
Right.
1 seed to get bounced by a 7 seed. It happens. It's happened before. So
100%. So do you want to move on to the Detroit game?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So Detroit. I mean, that was all offense
Yeah, oh, yeah.
between the Bears and the Lions, and I think kudos to the Bears for finally realizing, hey, we got a mobile quarterback.
Let's-
He has legs.
Let's use his mobility, not because like I like how they weren't just using him as a runner, but they were
Mhm.
like playing to his abilities. So they were doing these little
RPOs,
bootlegs, yeah, like
yeah.
to the right, moving everybody to the right, where he could just get out of the pocket and then just sling it where it needs to be,
Yeah.
like that touchdown to Cole Kmet,
Yep.
So I like what I saw there, and then with the Lions, I don't know what their offensive identity is still, because DeAndre Swift, it still seems like he's not 100%.
They just put up points.
Exactly.
The Lions just put up points.
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, the Lions, to me, I know everybody, myself included, bought into the hype of the Lions in the offseason with Hard Knocks and going forward. And I think it didn't get off to quite the start we expected. But, obviously last week against Dallas, they were competitive, pretty much up until the fourth quarter when the offense imploded and, turnovers kind of took that game away.
Mhm.
But then, that was 2 weeks ago. And then last week against Green Bay at home, you got a big win against the Packers, which really has not happened in Detroit in a long time,
Yeah.
in the middle of the season.
Mhm.
And then this week, you go on the road and you put up, 30-plus points, and the defense ultimately comes through in the end,
Mhm.
which had kind of been the problem for the Lions, up until this point.
Mhm.
So the defense came through. And who knows, they got 2 first-round picks this year. I think Dan Campbell still is the right guy for
Mhm.
this team.
I think he needs
Another
to
offseason or two to kind of acquire more talent is what it
Well,
is.
not only talent, but I think coaching staff around him could
Yeah.
be a little bit better.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they're quite there up to standard.
Yeah, and I mean, and I think that's expected with young teams.
Mhm.
So Dan Campbell's just trying to figure it out, and like I said, Jeff Okudah, the former top pick out of Ohio State, 3 years ago, has really kind of had a rough start to his NFL career. Had a pick 6 against the Bears.
Mhm.
He's had a really great season for them, and I kind of thought maybe like, dang, like if you were a contender, you should have tried to trade for him at that deadline because he's having a low key great year as cornerback 1 for that team.
Mhm.
But the Lions, I like the direction. Acquire more talent, and I think if you don't like or if you don't get the quarterback, whether it's Young or Stroud in the draft at 1 or 2, I can run it back with Jared Goff one more season. Because Jared Goff has shown me to the least he's not the problem.
Mhm.
Like Jared Goff, and now even in LA, I mean, I know it's a different team when compared to Goff was there, but Jared Goff is serviceable.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a serviceable quarterback.
He's not like gonna
he's
go
serviceable.
above and beyond, but
Yeah.
he's gonna be like Jimmy G level.
Yeah,
Like
for sure.
he's not gonna throw a game away, but he's not gonna crawl his way back into a game either.
Exactly. But he is what he is, and I think if I'm the Lions, especially this year, because he's played because obviously Amon-Ra has developed into a solid wide receiver.
Mhm.
And I think with he's a guy who could play next year if they opt to not draft a quarterback.
Yeah.
So
If they like someone they see a couple of years from now, I wouldn't be shocked. If
yeah,
they like.
for sure. And then obviously with Chicago, seeing them kind of build the offense around Justin Fields because of the lack of playmakers at the tight end and at the receivers is very nice to see.
Mhm.
Because for the first 6 weeks it looked horrible
Oh yeah.
because the offensive line couldn't block, they couldn't run the ball, and the Bears had Fields sitting there like a pocket passer, and that's just not his MO.
Mhm.
It's the RPO. He likes to, as you mentioned, with the motion, getting guys lined up and kind of give Fields the option to run around and
Mhm.
make some plays. And if I'm the Bears, you have your quarterback. Now it's all about can you build around him and get the right pieces around Fields because
Exactly.
you have your quarterback.
And I like what you said about right pieces, not
Yeah.
the best pieces, because
No.
I think a player that I think is a good piece, but it's not fitting the scheme, is like people like Darnell Mooney. I just
Right.
don't think he's just kind of your vertical guy. He's just just a more physical receiver.
Right.
I think you need someone that's like a little bit more of a route runner. You need a crisp, route runner in that.
I think the perfect guy, the perfect comp, think about RG3 back in 2012, his rookie season, and his offense, his game was almost kind of identical to a sense to Justin Fields, but a great guy. The Redskins signed was Pierre Garçon from the Colts.
Yes.
Garçon was a very tough, come across the middle of the field, take a hit, will run all the routes right, a very good receiver, and I think that's the kind of guy you need for Fields. So we'll see. It's going to be an interesting offseason for the Bears, to say the least. And, like I said, they have their quarterback. Quarterback's not the problem in Chicago anymore. Now, can you just, please, for the love of God, build around him? Because that is your quarterback. He's good.
Exactly.
Can you just build around it?
And you're going to need to, now upgrade that defense again. It's kind of crazy to see the turnaround on that defense, how it was a really bad defense, and then we saw it get really good in 2017, and now to just see that really tank is just kind of devastating.
I mean, they traded away Roquan Smith for a 2nd-round pick, and then they traded away Robert Quinn for a 4th.
That's what I thought.
So you get draft picks nonetheless, and I mean, that's gonna help you out this year a ton as far as the rebuilding process goes. And I mean, really, let's go and talk about this 4 team, the Packers, because the Packers, we'll call it like I see it. They're not a good team this year. I don't think they make the playoffs. Having said that, they won. It's like no matter what, Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones will always be on their money against the Cowboys, because that just seems to be y'all's problem.
And that's just one of the things.
Every year.
Every team will show their best against Dallas. That's the worst issue with Dallas, is we're always going to be under the most scrutiny, the most pressure to win games. That's just how it is when you have the label of America's team. People love to see you fall, and they love to see you, and they hate to see you win sometimes. So games like this was just the perfect game. Everything was stacking up in Green Bay's favor in terms of story. It was the backs against the wall. You're on a 5-game losing streak. But you're back at home. You're playing your bread and butter Dallas Cowboys that you can always seem to sneak a win off of. It was the perfect storm for them. And we just came off a bye week.
All you had to do was slay the dragon, Tony. That's all you had to do.
And another thing was, I think the biggest issue was, it really was. I'm not putting too much blame on Dak on this game. I know those 2 interceptions were key. Well, no, they weren't even key. They were bad, but they were in the first half.
And one was on.
One was on CD. One was on
CD.
Schultz.
Yeah,
they were both on the players.
One was on CD. That option route, you just got to recognize the coverage, and you got to sit and be patient. If you see the soft spot, you got to sit. He ran up. Dak obviously, no communication, but that was on CD. That second pick was, yeah.
And then
I look at the defense, man. I think the Packers figured out how to expose the Cowboy defense.
Exactly, and
I think they figured it out.
And that's why, if I'm not mistaken, Takk McKinley was looking at. Didn't we sign Takk McKinley?
Yeah.
See, I think
notice I wasn't a very enthusiastic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just I think it's much needed depth.
Yeah.
But it's also like I said, Quinn knows what he's doing. I'm gonna trust him with the defense, but I think the biggest issue was Dallas not having a consistent run game. And Makai and I talked about this. Pollard is not. I'm telling you right now, Pollard is not RB1. I'm sorry to tell y'all this. He proved it last week. And I know y'all loved what you saw from the Bears, but like we just said, the Bears are still figuring things out. They're not there yet.
It's a good defense at Green Bay.
And Pollard is not an every down back. He proved it. Zeke, you need Zeke on those first down carries. You need him on those second down carries. When it's tough sledding on those 4th and shorts, you want Zeke to keep that defense. Not even they're not going to blitz for Zeke. They're not not every team is going to key in on Zeke on those 4th and shorts, but they're going to keep him honest. They're going to be they still are going to account for Zeke. So it gives Dallas that option to be oh, they look like they're going to lead up. We can just play power run right up the gut,
And I think to me the biggest thing with the Packers was that you have 2 good backs, obviously, in Dillon and Jones, and the Cowboys. We've talked about on this very show before the lack of depth along the defensive line. is there. And with the ends, Lawrence isn't the guy he once was. Sam Williams is young, but he's a better pass rusher than a run stuffer. So I think you saw them not set the edge well enough, and not to mention, with no real big, beefy interior guy to take up those double teams and at least get in the way of the holes. That allowed Jones and Dillon to kind of run all over, and then the play action is there. And I think you all owe Anthony Brown an apology.
Oh
Go-
no! I still think he was the one that let the big
Go-
touch on the first one.
Yeah,
So what's his name?
But then they Watson.
Watson, yeah.
But then they absolutely picked on everybody else after that.
I think Kelvin Joseph is not a corner.
Should've
not a-
gone.
He's a special teams guy.
Should have gone to jail.
But
Just kidding. But
I think another a great point to your 2 running back system in Green Bay is that they always had a fresh running back. They had an AJ Dillon fresh or an Aaron Jones fresh. And that's how it usually is in Dallas. And when you see that in Dallas with a fresh Zeke and a fresh Pollard, you get big plays from Pollard. You get nice runs from Zeke. We don't have that. We don't have that luxury right now. And
and I kind of think it's almost like mirroring the same problems Dallas had last year, in the sense that when Zeke got hurt and banged up, you couldn't run the ball as effectively, which then put the pressure on Dak. And I like Dak, don't get me wrong, but the record, it is what it is. And since 2019, he's 4-9 against winning teams. Now, obviously, those could be circumstantial because the team might not be good enough or whatever. But, as Parcells once said, you are what your record says you are. So with Dak and the play calling, I just don't trust that going forward, especially if Zeke is going to play. If he's going to play banged up, then it's the same thing as last year.
Well, my thing is that, I
But
said,
minus, you don't have Amari Cooper now. You don't have a reliable number 2. Because Gallup is coming off the ACL and he's been sluggish. I think the Cowboys took a risk in Jalen Tolbert and expected him to be ready week 1. Hasn't made an impact since. And Noah Brown, you can't constantly count on Noah Brown week in, week out to be your second best receiver.
right.
So now you have, it's the same offense from a year ago, but minus Amari Cooper. And I think that's why I think the Cowboys need to pull the trigger and get OBJ right now.
I'd love to get OBJ too.
That's
I
what they
agree
need
with
to
that.
do.
But I think I would pull back on criticism from Dak just solely
Okay.
because this is my
Okay.
thing. The second half,
Okay.
he didn't really make any mistakes. He was doing the right things. I'm sorry that offense was crap because the offensive identity is run first, then we can set up that pass,
Yeah.
our passes, and they just weren't. And I think a great example of Dak playing good, but having mistakes and getting heavily scrutinized over other quarterbacks is Josh Allen. Nobody's calling Josh Allen, saying the same thing about Josh Allen. He threw 2 interceptions in the second half
But the problem
to the
with,
same aging cornerback, Patrick Peterson.
Hey, we don't slander Pat Pete.
I'm not.
But,
I'm saying
but-
he's an old corner.
but-
We didn't expect this out of Patrick
But
Peterson.
I'll say this to counter that, and I think it's because obviously I think Josh Allen, we all know he's a top 3, top 2 quarterback. Dak, I mean, I told you this before. I think the ceiling with Dak Prescott is he's a top 10 to 12 quarterback in the NFL, and I don't think Dak will ever be good enough to get you to a Super Bowl.
I'm just saying for this week,
Josh
though,
Allen has proven he can get away with those kind of plays.
right? But I'm saying
Oh, we got a comment?
Sergio asks, they signed Antonio Callaway. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's just depth. I don't think it's anything spectacular or bad.
They're just trying things out because obviously with CeeDee Lamb has proven he can be a 1. But obviously Gallup's coming off the ACL and isn't quite there. Tolbert's been kind of a real big disappointment for that team. You don't have a reliable number 2 threat, whether it's the receivers, the tight ends, the running backs. So I just think Callaway coming out of Florida was the real speedster kind of guy, real deep threat. He's cool, but he fills it out. He fizzled out in Cleveland due to some off the field problems. And again, I think the move has to be go sign Odell Beckham no matter what. If you want to compete, you got to sign Odell. Because I don't think we saw this last year when Zeke was hurt, they couldn't run the ball effectively. You put the pressure on Dak and these receivers, they couldn't get it done, right? It's the same problem this year, but now take away Amari Cooper and you don't have a number 2 receiver. That's what it is. So
But I think-
Callaway is cool, but
I think about the beauty in this year is that they have now took the time to sit Zeke out a couple weeks now.
that might help.
They're
Yeah.
taking the time, whereas last year Zeke played injured.
Yeah.
And that was what cost him.
But
So now they're taking their time with this.
but last year with the PCL, no matter what, Zeke was me playing through pain no matter what.
Mhm.
So now I just wonder if the time off helps him or not. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, is he gonna play hurt still regardless?
I think it's gonna be you're getting like they're
Yeah.
2 weeks now. I think is a big deal because like
Yeah.
I feel like it's like known that Zeke is kind of like the like a warrior in that sense. He will
Yeah.
play through injury and he doesn't miss time. He's kind of like one of those more like reliable players on our team.
For sure.
So them taking their time with him coming back from injury is very telling. They're saying like we want him back at full capacity. We can't afford to have like what we had last year. I think that's what they're looking at. So I think that's I think that's going to be the difference between last year's that they're taking time now. They rather lose a game against Green Bay, and to like win games further down the line and get us into the playoffs with a healthy Zeke,
Yeah, and I think one word, Sergio, to sum up that question about Callaway, I think the word would be desperation, because that's a guy who was a former top. He was a high prospect coming out of Florida. Had potential. It kind of didn't work out in Cleveland, and then in was it Miami? I want to say it was the Dolphins. So I think it's just a desperate move to see if you can get anything out of a former top pick. I mean, and that happens all the time in the NFL. There are always guys taking chances.
Mhm.
I mean, the Chiefs, Kadarius Toney. The Chiefs last year when they traded for DeAndre Baker, the Giants corner who got released last year. So it's teams do it all the time. So I just think that there's nothing I really expect out of it.
And especially because it makes me question the James Robinson move now, because I feel like that's another player that we
Washington?
forget- Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Because we don't I still haven't heard much about him coming back or when that's going to happen. And I think it may be telling on that situation, if
Yeah.
anything. Like that means we might not see him for the rest of the season, or
just go get OBJ and solve all your problems.
I agree.
That's the pit. That I think.
But after this week against Buffalo, like with Buffalo losing and Dallas losing, it does make his negotiations harder for those teams because they did have the upper hand.
they didn't need OBJ.
Yeah, they were like playing good, and they were like, okay, well we can wait on this, and now y'all both lose games that like mean something. I wouldn't say mean something, but they have this narrative to them now, and it's like now
Yep.
that, he kind of has power to y'all now.
Yeah, and real quick, just one more thing before we move on here. Shout out to the Colts, Jeff Saturday, who kind of that was a whole wacky situation with the firing of Frank Wright and then bringing in Jeff Saturday, former player who was coaching high school ball 2 years ago, and that was the last thing he had done coaching wise.
Mm-hmm.
I thought his press conference talking about he wants to be a leader among the men and gain the respect of the players. Thought that was very telling about the kind of guy he is, because I've heard great things about Saturday as a person.
Mm-hmm.
And the Colts, I mean, hey, they went back to Matt Ryan. Taylor had his signature breakout game that we've been kind of waiting for.
Mm-hmm.
You're 4-5-1, and I mean, and in that division, you're very much
Alive.
in the mix, depending on how things go. But kudos to the Colts, because I mean, I think a lot of people wrote them off after hiring Saturday, and
I think this is my thing.
it was cool to see Saturday get that win.
My thing about Saturday was I thought this was a move to where I think it made a lot of sense. I thought this was a very safe move. Like you're not hiring you're not promoting a coordinator that you would want to keep
Yeah,
moving forward, cuz like we saw with I guess Vegas last year with Bisaccia.
yeah,
Like they promoted him but they didn't do anything with him. They're not going to take their, coordinating job back. They're going to, they're going to go somewhere else.
right.
And I know he's special teams coach in Green Bay now, but
Yeah.
it's just one of those things like you don't want to lose any of the staffing you already have. Like if you like everybody else, you might want to go from someone that's outside. You don't want someone to ruffle any feathers. You want someone to like your fan base, the culture, like they're going to, rally behind. And you brought in someone that is a familiar face in the franchise.
Yep.
And a big one too.
Yep.
So I thought it was I wouldn't say smart, but it was very I saw the thought process, and I'm like, it's not gonna, and when they move on, people are gonna be happy with what he did, but they're not gonna be like, I want to keep him forever, because I just don't think he is the win was nice. I just don't see
There's no future to it.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
think this is a good, finish out the rest of the season. Nobody's going to be upset that with what you did because you were just thrown into this. They
And
know
if-
the situation,
And if you make the playoffs, then hey, cool.
That's just a little bit extra.
Cool story.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean the Colts, kudos to them. The Raiders, yikes. Yeah, did you see the story about the story coming out of Vegas, how they can't fire Josh McDaniels?
Why can't they?
Because they're cash strapped right now because they're still paying off John Gruden and his $100 million contract, and the source said right now the Raiders simply can't afford to fire him for the next 2 years, and then bring somebody else in and pay them,
Exactly.
because at that point you're paying off 3 head coaches. So the Raiders, but if you're the Raiders and if you suck this year, maybe you give McDaniels a chance to find his quarterback, whether it's Young or Stroud or Hooker or whoever, and then move on from Derek Carr. Maybe that's the move.
I just think the
But-
hiring of
yeah.
McDaniels was crap. Like,
Yeah.
I think, when has he ever proved he was a good head coach?
It's
Never.
the New England way.
Exactly.
It's the New England way.
And it's the one, like, he's always getting these opportunities. It's always him.
Well, he coached Denver in 2009,
Mm-hmm.
and then they started off, I think, 6-0, and then they completely fell apart. He drafted Tebow and then left Denver. And then in 2017, so like the year they hired Frank Wright, McDaniels had agreed to coach the Colts.
Mm-hmm.
But then remember, he backed out at the
Exactly.
very last second and re-upped with New England. And then the Colts thus hired Frank Wright, which worked out for both teams, I think.
Mm.
But and now you're just seeing another classic. Oh, he's a Belichick guy who really can't pan out. And Belichick's coaching tree just gets smaller and smaller every time
Mm-hmm.
because there really is no coaching tree.
Yeah, it's just him because
McVay has a better coaching tree right now
Mhm.
because McVay had LaFleur.
I thought they weren't like
No, they were together in Washington.
yeah.
LaFleur, Shanahan, and McVay were together.
Mhm.
I mean, McVay has O'Connor from Minnesota,
Oh yeah,
Kevin O'Connell, Zach Taylor in Cincinnati.
that's right. Yeah.
So I mean, that alone's a better coaching tree
Mhm.
than what I've seen in New England. So
Sure.
yeah, yeah. So any last thoughts before we move on to Odell real quick?
No, I think that's about
No.
it.
As a Saints fan, I'm just ready for the offseason. So hey, let's get to it. So let's talk about Odell Beckham real quick. The report came out last week about he's gearing up, getting ready to come back to play. The teams that he's most interested in would be the Cowboys, Niners, Bills, Chiefs. I forgot one. I'm tripping.
They were all contenders.
I'm
He even said contenders.
Holding the
right?
stance right here.
But he said like playoff worthy teams, right?
Yes. Giants.
Giants.
Who would have thought? Giants. So let me ask you this, Antonio. So let's just say Odell's ready to go here in a week or so. We'll start fielding offers and calls. Who do you think is the best fit for Odell Beckham Jr.?
I said he's a good fit in Dallas.
Yeah.
Yeah, like because I don't think you're asking him to do too much. Because CD's we've already discussed our number one receiver just does it
It's
all.
much like in LA last year. Cup is your one.
And then you have Gallup is going to be your deep threat. He'll
Yeah.
be your vertical guy. He just needs to be able to do the short, the intermediate routes. That's all he has to worry about.
Yeah. A chain getter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Basically what he did last year in LA, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because I think Dallas's offense is a little too heavily reliant on those tight ends to get those like intermediate to like those 7 or 8 yards, those 3rd and 7s. They're
Right.
just too heavily reliant on tight ends. I love our tight end group. I really do. It's a lot
They're
to
tight
ask.
ends.
Yeah, they're not as speedy.
not
They're not
receivers.
playmakers.
Right.
Like,
And I think
we don't have the top tight ends. We just don't have the luxury of like, a Kelsey or a Kittle. Even the next tiers like the Dallas Goddards. We don't have those type of
you have
tight ends.
Schultz, but I feel like Schultz is only good when Dak's in there because Dak trusts
Mhm.
Schultz, and that's his guy. But,
And he still makes his mistakes.
yeah, so, I mean, Dallas would be cool. Like that, I think schematically speaking, that probably would be the best fit. But for me, I'm a sucker for stories.
Mhm.
How would it feel to go back to New York, man? I mean, talk about the Giants, kind of the impossible start they're on right now. Saquon looking like Saquon of old. Daniel Jones actually looks competent as a quarterback. He's not goofing it up for the Giants, and I think for Odell to go back to Cleveland, I mean to New York,
to New York.
New York, to be, and I think for him, he would be the number one guy.
Yeah, because Galladay is,
We don't talk about Galladay. We don't talk about Kenny Galladay.
and then Kadarius Toney. We knew like
He's
trade
traded
away.
away.
You know,
They have Slayton. They have
Slayton's not bad. I think he's a shifty guy. He's a decent number 2, a really good number 3. I think.
and they would have a need because they lost Sterling Shepard, weeks ago.
Yeah, they lost him against Dallas.
And I- The Niners would be interesting. Only
I wouldn't get it too much because
I
I,
wouldn't.
think you have Debo as your number 1. You have
Ayuk.
Ayuk as your number 2.
they like Jennings.
As I say,
Jennings is an
Jennings
excellent.
like-
He's an excellent run blocker.
exactly, and a nice number 3, a
Yeah.
nice compliment. And you have Kittle as another, threat. I don't think they
It's not a need. It'd be a luxury for the Niners.
exactly.
It'd be a
They've already
luxury.
just grabbed McCaffrey, and that's another thing that they can use in the passing game. I don't see.
And
them.
then to mention, they get
Thank
Elijah
you.
Mitchell back from injury, and you
Mhm.
saw in that Charger game, Elijah Mitchell, he was putting in work as a number 2 back. As the real, yard getter right there, and it
Mhm.
allows you to put McCaffrey in the slot or out wide and let him get involved in the passing game. So
Mhm.
Odell will be nice for the Niners. It'd be nice, but for the Niners, I think that's more of a luxury than a need.
exactly.
To where I think of these other teams, you look at Dallas, they need a guy opposite CD. If you're the Giants, I think you need to have a number 1 receiver to kind of draw attention and take some pressure off Jones and Barkley in the backfield.
Mhm.
The Chiefs are interesting because they've made it work losing Tyreek Hill because now it's kind of a group by committee, but at the same time, everyone has a role and they play it perfectly.
Mhm.
But-
Like it feels like Tyreek was half of the pie. Kelsey, or no, I think like Kelsey and Tyreek was half the pie. Then
Right.
everybody else was like a little bit. But now it seems like everybody has little bits, and there's like a lot more people. So you
Doing
got-
Scantling, Juju, who actually had a really good start to the year, but then he had that scary injury.
yeah, that was
so
like the bad hit.
So Juju's played well. Scanling's had his moments. Nicole Hardman does his thing. So by committee, you've kind of filled the role Tyreek Hill had.
And
at
Kadarius
that-
Toney, we didn't.
Yeah, and
he's
Darius Toney.
He's
Yeah,
playing great. so
yeah.
far.
So if Odell were to go there, it would make sense because now it's like, who are you going to guard? Because one of these guys is bound to get open.
Mhm.
The Chiefs would be cool. The Bills, obviously, the three-headed monster between Diggs and Gabriel Davis and Odell.
Mhm.
I just don't know how you're going to stop that. On top of having to stop Josh Allen running the football.
Mhm.
Um,
And see, I think that's what like an issue with the Bills is that like they're not needy at receiver. I think they're needy at running back.
yeah, Devin Singletary is. He's not a starter running back.
Yeah.
He's a cool complimentary piece.
Because didn't they trade away Zach Moss for Hines?
Yes.
So I think that was their move. I don't
I
think.
forgot they traded for Naheem Hines.
Mm-hmm.
Completely forgot
I
about
did
that.
too for a second.
I
So
forgot
I think
about that.
that's a little bit more help in the run game and in the passing game. So I don't think they're too tight on receiver either.
Yeah,
Like, I think,
and I think, with the Packers kind of being in the position they're in right now, I think you can kind of put that to rest because, I think the Packers to me are kind of like the Rams in the sense of adding Odell doesn't fix your problems.
Mhm.
Because Odell will be cool at Green Bay, but Odell, I don't think he can handle being a number 1 wide receiver anymore.
And not only that, like
And
I
in Green
think-
Bay, he would have to be that.
and that is relying on the whole team as well because that's a team that's struggling to stay alive in that division. Because you have teams like Minnesota that are running away with it now.
Not to mention the NFC, East pretty much has a leg up on everybody because they're so good record-wise.
Like every team, like the NFC East has those 3 teams are like playoff like bound right
All
now.
4 above 500.
Mm-hmm.
Philly's what 8-1.
8-1,
Dallas is
7-2 from New York, 6-3 in Dallas,
and
then
5-5 for
5-5.
Washington.
Mhm.
So I mean, hypothetically, all 4 of them can make the playoffs.
Mhm.
That whole division can go in the playoffs. So I think you take Green Bay out of the equation. I think the Rams, they could be competitive, but like I've always said, like I've always told people, adding Odell to the Rams right now, even if they had Cooper Kupp, it doesn't fix the Rams' problems.
Because
they can't-
it's like it just seems like
they can't run the ball, they can't protect the quarterback.
the defense is just doesn't look nearly as good as
And
it did last year.
Again, I think like the Lakers this year in the NBA, a team that traded away all their assets to win the championship, which both of them did. But now they're both teams that can't rely on the draft because you're having to bank on low end talent to come through. And now you're just seeing a team full of a couple stars and low end talent.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I would lean towards Dallas, New York, or Kansas City.
Yeah.
Those would be my picks.
And I
And that's
take
probably
Dallas
that's
over
probably
those.
that's probably the order I put them in too.
And I think Dallas is like I said, going back to that is the best because
I
Kansas
wonder
City.
why.
I feel,
I wonder why you think that.
I wonder, but it's like a little bit of. I think there's already too many mouths in Kansas City. Like I don't think he's gonna get the attention.
And Odell wants to like contribute on top of that.
Exactly.
He
So
wants
he's
to
not
like
gonna
be
be
a
a big
contributor.
contributor. I think New York, you're asking him to contribute a little too much.
It's fair.
Because I think it's kind of going with the Green Bay thing. It's like you're asking to be a number one. You're asking to draw attention. Whereas Dallas, you're asking to be a number two. That means you're not getting the first read, but you're getting the second one. You are like Dak is going to look at you
and you're
right
getting
after
the second corner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the Dak is going to look your way a lot.
Yeah.
Um.
But I do think the home factor for him plays in with the Giants. I think
Mhm.
because I mean you look at those four teams on paper, you think why the hell are the Giants even mentioned? I think Odell wants to go back and right the wrongs in New York that because they ended things very sourly.
Mhm.
So I think OBJ would want to go back and try and help out the Giants in any way he could, which would be cool. But I think, like I said, the order would be Dallas, New York, Kansas City would be the way I would rank it.
Mine would be Dallas. I would probably say Kansas City, then Green Bay, then New York. I think New York's just a little bit lower in my.
I wonder why.
No, it's not against I have no ill will against New York. I think they're I'm happy that they're 7-2. You know,
Right.
I'm still not 100% sold on
That's
them.
fair. That's
But
fair.
I think they're a good team, and going forward they're going to be a force to be reckoned with.
That's fair.
And we picked on them for years now, so it's like okay.
They can have one.
Mm-hmm. Philly, I don't like at all. So
That's fair.
I don't like
Okay,
when they're good.
so really quick, let's talk about some mid-season awards. Obviously, we weren't here last week, so we're gonna dive into it now, even though it's like week 10. But with 17 games, there really is no halfway point anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So let's dive right into it. ESPN and Bill Barnwell released their mid-season awards last week. So who do you think he has listed for his comeback player of the year?
Who do I think they have?
Yeah. Who do you think they have, and who do you think it should be? Because I'll just tell you right now, the guy that is listed on here, I think should win it.
The wheels are turning. I'm sorry. I'm like,
Think about your division. NFC East.
oh, Saquon.
Saquon, yes.
Okay, yeah, good, very
Yeah.
good one. He's the leader in rushing right now.
Yeah, Saquon Barkley. I think that's a guy who
That probably will win it. Yeah,
probably off to the best start since his rookie season.
absolutely.
Because the last 3 years have been awful. But like just something about seeing Saquon make that jump cut again, and like I was like, the NFL is back to where it needs to be. Saquon Barkley's good again.
NFL is healing.
It is. So they have Saquon Barkley, and then behind him is Geno Smith.
I was thinking that
That would be cool.
I think I was talking to someone about that.
Geno would be cool because I mean, Ryan Tannehill won it after his first year in Tennessee.
Mm-hmm. And it's like everybody
wasn't-
kind of wrote Geno off, and he didn't write back. That's
That's such a Geno Smith answer though. Like,
I liked it.
It's so corny, but like it works.
it's just you can't. If you hate Geno Smith, there's something wrong with you.
I mean, and if Seattle, if they somehow win that division, and then if they even make the playoffs, I think Geno does deserve a lot more. The odds should be leaning towards Geno at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Because nobody expected Seattle to be. Granted, nobody expected the Giants to be where they're at either.
Mm-hmm.
But I think
It's a little bit a quarterback and a running back. It's harder to compare.
it's always going to be the quarterback.
exactly.
It's always going to be the quarterback. Coach of the year, who do you think they have listed?
Is it Ryan DeBall?
No, I thought it should have been DeBall.
It's a good one.
It's not DeBall.
Oh, is it Phillies?
Sirianni.
Yeah.
Sirianni's one, and then the runner-up
I don't
behind
like
him
him.
is Mike McDaniel.
That's
I like
I like
I like Mike
I like
McDaniel.
more. I take him over. I don't like Nick Sirianni at all.
Hey, that's what happens when you get a soft schedule. You're supposed to, when you beat everybody you're supposed to beat. That's cool and all.
Mm-hmm.
But I would probably go Maybe I will go to ball 1 just because that environment in New York was so toxic and so
And he cleaned.
he cleaned it up real quick
Mhm.
to where they're competing for the playoffs, which I think nobody expected in Miami or New York. But Mike McDaniel is a very good choice as well.
Mhm.
What he's done with Tua after everybody has so many questions about Tua, I love to see.
And,
I
he's
love
a
to
likable person. I think that's like
He's-
another thing. You know,
Did you see the clip of him and Justin Fields?
I told him to quit scrambling, and he wouldn't. Like,
Did you hear what he said after
yeah,
that?
he's like he's just not coachable or something, right?
like I love Mike
Yeah,
McDaniel,
exactly.
man.
It's
I
just one of
love
those like
him.
you got. I
I love
him.
the energy he has. But they have Sirianni 1, McDaniel 2, and I wouldn't personally agree with that. But hey, okay. Up next, defensive rookie of the year.
Aiden Hutchinson.
No,
Whoa, they really? Who?
Sauce Gardner
Good one
from the
Very-
Jets.
Very good one.
He's had a very shutdown year this year.
I love the defensive rookies this year. You got those two, Tariq Woolen as well.
The guy we
Uh,
interviewed at the Senior Bowl.
Exactly.
Very good.
And New
Hey,
York's
Aiden?
got.
I'm sorry. Who were you gonna say?
I was saying, what's his name from New York? The edge rusher. I liked him too.
Thibodeau.
Thibodeau. Yeah.
Thibodeau, Hutchinson, who had
Mhm.
that nasty pick against the Packers.
He's just a stud.
But Sauce Gardner has been that lockdown corner this year for the Jets, and again the Jets also in the playoff mix, and I think a lot of it has to do with Sauce Gardner has been that guy for that team.
He's just fundamentally sound, and then he's also just a playmaker. He's just a complete corner.
Yep, another guy I would maybe consider. I would like to mention would be Devin Lloyd from Jacksonville, the linebacker they
yeah.
took from Utah, has had a very good year as well. Offensive rookie of the year. Who do you think they have listed? You have one of them on fantasy.
I have a rookie on my team. It's on the one with our dads.
Yeah, with our dads. Yeah,
I'm tripping. Like,
I'm ashamed you don't know this answer.
why am I like tripping?
I am
Rookie?
so ashamed. Yes, I'm so ashamed you don't know this answer. Considering how much I would bet for this guy right now.
I'm like just. Oh, Olave.
yes.
I'm
Chris
like, I'm
Olave.
sorry. Like, I'm like, just like, I don't know why my receiving group, I was like brain farting. I was like forgetting half of them. Like, I barely remembered St. Brown. I was like, he's not a rookie.
Chris Olave currently is top 8 in the NFL in receiving yards, despite the quarterback play in New Orleans. Love to see it for him. He's a very good player. I'm happy.
I want
we
to see
got him.
more. He's
Well-
not putting up crap fantasy.
Well,
He doesn't deserve the reward.
When we get
Sorry.
when we get a quarterback, we'll get it figured out. I
Put
promise.
Jameis in. Forget it.
I mean, yeah, that would help out a lot. They have number 2, Garrett Wilson from the Jets, who also had a very nice start to his career.
Mhm.
And number 3 might be like the most breakout guy would be Damian Pierce
Damian Pierce is nice
from
too.
Houston. He's just he is that offense for that Texans team.
I think Kenneth Walker should be in the mix too, but
Should be, yeah, for sure.
just because like I think him and Damian Pierce are the very similar situations. That's the offense now,
Yeah.
and it helps. Like, it opens up the playbook.
Defensive player of the year. You should know this answer.
Micah.
It's Micah Parsons. Micah 1, Nick Bosa 2, and then they have Pat Surtain 3.
Good list.
But who said that? Yeah, Winston needs a lot more than vision, my friend. He needs a new back, a new ankle, a new.
I think he just
He
should
need,
retire.
I think. Look, I'm a Saints fan, and I know it's been a rough year. And Jameis Winston kind of put this team in a hole early on because he played through the injuries. And to be honest, he just wasn't playing good. And injuries or not, he still committed some pretty awful turnovers. And I think injuries can't cover that up. So they made the switch to Danny Dalton. I'm not going to get into a Saints rant because I'm not going to talk about that today because I do that enough already as it is. They're Canal Street, but it's just rough. And I may have been a little too high on Jameis Winston this year. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit, Tony. Maybe a tad. A little too high on Jameis. Would you agree?
Just a little.
Just a little. Just a little.
Tad.
Just a tad. I mean, I only had them as a dark horse.
Speaking of,
I only had them-
defensive player of the year, and we got Micah Parsons with his first touchdown of the season.
I
of
only
his
had
career.
I only had the Saints listed as a dark horse contender, but maybe a little too much.
Yeah, that's still
Offensive player of the year. Who do you think it is?
Um,
And this is the right answer. The player they list here is the right
is it
answer.
Derek?
No.
I was like, I'm glad. Like Tennessee is like quiet now because I'm like, I think Derrick Henry's great, and I just think that team is just.
Oh.
It is only Derrick Henry, so I
Yeah,
think that's the issue.
yeah.
That's why I don't like it. I'm like, can you give me something else?
Jeffrey Simmons, that defensive tackle. He's a beast.
Yeah.
That's all I can give you. Offensive player of the year.
Offensive Player of the Year.
I'll give you a hint. It was one of the big wide receivers that got traded in the offseason.
Oh, Tyreek?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Tyreek Hill is on pace to shatter the wide receiver record for most yards in a season.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I just want to point out, DeAndre ain't here, but I'm going to give the Dolphins their flowers where they're due. Because Tua team, man, like if me and DeAndre,
I think it's
Javonte and Makai were on record for tearing up Tua. And me and DeAndre, we were on the Tua train. Tua just needed the right head coach and the right system and the right
that's
players.
Going to your coaching point.
Mike
I think
McDaniel.
it's there was a video, I don't know if I sent it to you. It was him and Mike McDaniel. Like, just like the way they communicate on the
It's-
sideline, it's great. It's
Yeah.
so like they just trust in each other.
Oh, the one where he says, "What play do you like?" And he's like, the play where you call a touchdown.
Mhm.
It's like a title of a Friends episode.
That's my thing. It was like, I think it was not a huge loss for. I think it's a big loss for Kansas City, but it was like, it wasn't one that it was a hole they couldn't overcome. You know,
Right. Yeah.
I think the coach with coaching alongside with talent, it's just hard to beat. You can't beat Mahomes
And Reed.
and Reed. It's
Yeah.
just
That's
you
very
can,
much
but, I
fair.
mean,
That's very much fair. And really quick, let me pull up these college football rankings. I just quickly want to discuss, or just throw it out there how I feel things are going right now, because it's going to be very interesting. Because currently, Tony, I know you don't keep up with college football that much, but TCU, you know the streak they're on right now. You know they're very good.
Mhm.
They're ranked 4th in college football.
wow.
So technically, when they select the playoff teams, TCU's in the playoffs.
Mhm.
And I just think, if TCU can, but I think the only path TCU has to doing that is they have to win out, and then they have to win the Big 12, because I think at the end of the day, it's going to be Georgia is undefeated, obviously. They're going to get in. Tennessee still has a shot if they can beat and win the SEC, because they're a one-loss team, but they beat Alabama. LSU was 8-2. LSU beat Alabama.
Mhm.
But they lost to Tennessee, so it's kind of a wacky race as far as the SEC is concerned,
Yeah.
because Georgia, Georgia, Tennessee, LSU, that's 3 teams out there that could all are duking it out for the SEC, which is kind of wacky.
Mhm.
And Ohio State, they're undefeated, and we know what they're going to do, but Northwestern kind of exposed CJ Stroud on that offense a little bit, so kind of interested in when they play Michigan, how that goes, because both of them they're kind of on that path, Michigan, Ohio State, to win their conference. And I just think for TCU being in the Big 12, it's a weaker conference. So I feel like no matter what, they have to win out. They have to win the Big 12 to even have a shot to get in, because of the level of competition versus the SEC, and then obviously Ohio State and or Michigan. So it's going to be an interesting race for sure in college football. And not to mention you have USC as well. So they're 9-1. They're 7th right now behind LSU. So Bama's done nonetheless, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
That done, and then it might be the end of Alabama, if we're being serious, because
You think so?
I think the way with open recruiting now, and the NIL is, or you can basically recruit the hell out of kids and offer them a bunch of money for now. And I think the problem with Alabama is that Nick Saban is so set on the idea of my name and my brand is enough that will attract athletes,
Mhm.
because Alabama will be enough, right? But you see teams like Texas A&M, USC throwing buku bucks at these kids.
Mhm.
So not only go play football for the programs, but also we're going to give you $5 million to come play
Mhm.
straight out of high school. That's crazy. And
Exactly.
if it were me, if I was going back and if I was 18 coming out of high school and I had the choice between Bama and Texas, and if Bama or Texas offer me more money to go play in Austin, I'm going to Austin.
Well, also it's because you live here too.
Oh yeah. Okay. U.S. Well, no, because I would
You got to
pick
think
California.
about markets too. Like
Yeah.
think about who wants to go to Bama?
Because,
Do you want to? We've been to Alabama. Do you want to live there?
No, it's not very fun.
Exactly.
There's
Like,
a Bojangles, and that's about it.
there's one here now, right?
They're opening one up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
But you get like the brand Nick Saban. He's trying to sell athletes on my program.
that
I
used
can
to be
win.
enough. Now it's no longer enough.
Yeah, but now with teams openly recruiting, because now it's legal. Like
Mm-hmm.
before it was all under the table. word can't get out because then we'll get in trouble. But now it's open, like it's free agency for college kids.
Mhm.
And with the transfer portal, if you saw Alabama is so stacked, all these like Alvin Kamara, he was at Alabama,
Mhm.
didn't get playing time, went to Tennessee, but now you could transfer in and out whenever you want to at college in college football. So I think Bama, maybe not the end, but it's kind of like they got to figure out.
They're
They got
gonna
to
have to up
adjust
their game now.
They got to adjust to the new game because
Mhm.
NIL and marketing and just the ability to recruit openly with all these things you could throw at these kids.
Mhm.
Texas has the money, A&M has the money, USC has the money. All of them have the money to do it.
Money and market. That's
Yeah.
the biggest things. And like you said, you got to look at the viewpoint of a young kid trying to get his career, like build a career,
Yeah, and sure, Saban will get you to the NFL, but I mean, realistically,
And what's realistically that you play for Bama? You going back to what you said about Kamara, like he didn't even get to play at Bama. So
no, he transferred out to Tennessee.
Exactly.
And I mean, so Bama's just got to figure out what they're going to do because it's going to be
and if
interesting.
I'm looking at that, like if I'm a kid right now, I'm like, I'm gonna take the money now, take what I can get now, and then if worst case scenario, I can transfer.
And not to mention-
I can figure it out.
And not to mention, you can make even more money with deals from local businesses and sponsors.
Exactly, market. It's
Yeah,
about like
and
what's
I mean-
around you. What
And I mean,
what is in Bama? Like going back to that, what is in Bama? Do you know what Bama's known for? Like I don't. Like off the top of my head,
incest.
yeah, exactly. Shit like that. It's just.
I mean, moonlight, moonshine.
I was gonna say moonlight. You
Mo-
moonshine.
Moonshining. I don't know what else you do in Alabama. You hunt for Bigfoot.
I don't even think Bigfoot wants to be in Bama.
I mean, USC is a perfect example of that, right? Because it's California. It's Southern California. It's the West Coast,
you're getting paid, so you're gonna.
and
be
not to
fine.
mention
You'll be well off.
not to mention the market in California alone.
Exactly.
And in Texas, there's no income tax on anything. So whatever money they have on that contract, that's yours. None of it goes back towards the state.
Mm-hmm.
And Dallas and Austin are both top. I would assume they're top 15 markets. I know Dallas for sure is, but I would assume Austin is around that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy because Bama's got to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Because
So I don't think it's an end, but like if they
They
don't
got-
adjust soon, they're gonna have to get rid of Saban.
to bring somebody who will
You're
play the
gonna have
game.
to, and that's the thing is that's the hardest part is that you're gonna have to bring in a guy that's enticing. It's almost like a salesman, like selling you.
That's what it is.
Play here, and
That's
that's like another. That's like a thing you have to balance out in the NFL too. Is like bringing coaches that are not only good coaches but that are attracting players, so like making players want to play there.
Yep. Yeah, or even bringing in the right players to bring in other players, So,
Mm-hmm.
like, I mean, when Odell went to Cleveland, Jarvis was already there and established himself.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, yeah, it's just all about connecting and making the right moves. But I think, again, Alabama's got to figure out next year how they can step up their recruiting game. Because I think if they don't, then you might be in a situation to where I think all these teams are getting more money because they're playing well. And they'll throw buku bucks at kids. And Bama just won't because they think the brand's enough. And nowadays, it just simply isn't.
Mm-hmm.
Because teams can openly recruit. And it's a toughie. It's a toughie for sure. But real quick, last two things we'll do here before we log off for the day. Let's do some drafts. We'll do the fun one first. Let's do our MCU Marvel movie draft. We'll do 5 movies apiece. We'll just go back and forth at it. Now we both have not seen Wakanda Forever yet. I'm gonna go tomorrow and watch it. And Tony, you're planning to go once the restrictions lift. Or I don't know if I can say that or not, but I mean,
Yeah, I'm just gonna wait until we can use passes for it.
he works in a movie theater. He can go watch them for free, but Disney is being a turd about it.
They're always like that. That's
Yeah,
how
I
it
feel
is.
that. I feel that. So, I'll let you go first, bud. I'll give you the first pick. I'll be generous. I'll
And this
give
is
you
for all MCU movies?
all the MCU movies. Do you want to count the shows or no?
Nah.
Nah,
And
okay.
that includes the specials like Wolf by Night, which I
Loved.
Loved that movie.
It's
or
an
the
ode
show.
to horror movies, so I loved it. But yeah, so we won't count those. We won't count those.
I'll probably go Infinity War.
That's a solid pick. I can't argue that. Probably the best MCU movie in all seriousness. That's probably the best one. And I'm going to counter you. Endgame. You know, say what you want about the time travel flaws and all that, but I think the portal scene alone, I can watch that on loop all day because I think that's just 23 movies adding up to that moment alone.
That's like that was like gonna be my like next pick, so or my second round pick.
Yeah, that I'm gonna go with Endgame because that's just it's a beautiful ending to the Infinity Saga.
Absolutely. I'm gonna go Civil War then. After that,
It's a good pick. That might be like my favorite Russo film. So, well, no,
that one, yeah,
that's
you
a really
could-
good film.
Yeah, you could. I wouldn't.
And like
be
that
upset.
trailer was so good too. Like that's the thing. So
Mm-hmm.
like at work I got bored. So I looked up I was like, you know, let's watch some Marvel trailers while I'm up here. I had them all on a loop and it's like Civil War it hyped up so
You had
much.
Spidey and Black Panther.
And like it hyped so much of like the Avengers really are breaking up and this is the end of the Avengers. And,
And it delivered too.
it delivered. Also, like seeing Tom Holland, I never thought we'd see Spider because I think at that point we all kind of were okay with not having
It was-
Spider-Man.
we were like, okay,
We were
well,
cool
let's
with
wait
it.
until they get it right.
Yeah,
Oh.
but when they brought him in, we were like, "Holy crap! No way!" Speaking of
And
Spider,
his suit too.
yeah.
I think that was a big talking point.
Speaking of Spider-Man, I'm gonna just say it. Kenneth's not gonna be happy. He's already nodding his head. Spider-Man: No Way Home. You can say what you want about the nostalgia factor, but I think full circle, it does give you the best version of Peter we've seen. And not to mention, I think all the older characters serve their roles and have their moments, and I think it does redeem a lot of the characters. In the Maguire and the Garfield movies, and again, it gives us like the best interpretation of Spider-Man we've gotten, where he lost everything, and now he's got to build it back up.
Yeah,
So
that's
Spider-Man.
a solid pick. I think I have 3 so far, or I have 2. Right,
2.
We're on our third one.
Infinity War and Civil War.
I'm gonna go with. I'm looking at all of them. Give me the first Avengers then.
Okay. Oh, okay. I know what I'm picking next then.
Huh.
Winter Soldier.
I was gonna do that one. I was like, I think I'd rather watch the first Avengers. than
It's a
that.
good movie. Like, I mean, it started it all. Like, without the Avengers, you never have anything else really.
Mhm.
But Winter Soldier, that's a damn good movie. It's so good, and it's like different than a Marvel movie.
For sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Winter Soldier.
My 4th pick will be. Let me look at bye weeks real quick.
Yeah, look at the matchups.
Yeah. I don't like what division this one's in. A little bit of a crazy one out there, but I'm gonna go Doctor Strange, the first one.
Okay,
That's just a personal favorite of mine.
I'm gonna go
My
with
sleeper.
the first Iron Man.
Oh, okay, good one. Very good one.
Started it all.
And my last pick. You know what? Another kind of, I think, curveball is give me the first Guardians. I like the first Guardians.
Okay, that's good. Okay, I think I'm gonna go with. Give me Ragnarok.
That's how I figured it was. gonna be
Best
next.
interpretation, the best Thor movie, best version of Thor we've gotten.
Good point.
So yeah, no, give me Thor.
Okay.
I'm rock with Thor.
Like that one.
So I think on that note, we're gonna wrap things up here because I got to do a very important phone call here. So this is the Final Drive signing off. This has been Alec and Tony. We'll see you guys next week. And hey, shout out to you guys on TikTok for watching. Make sure you bring the comments. We're looking forward to that.
Mm-hmm.
So until then, we'll see you guys next week.